Good evening. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's meeting. This is the 19th meeting of the Board of Directors during this calendar year 2022. Here we are Tuesday, October 4th already. So we're into the fourth quarter. And we'll begin with an invocation by Teddy Fry, and I'll lead the pledge. All rise.
As we bow together, most righteous God, we thank you for the beautiful city that we live in. We thank you for the leaders that you have set in place to provide a framework of authority for us to live safely and peacefully. And I ask that you continue to provide our leaders with wise and godly counsel, provide them with honest wisdom and encouragement. And I pray that you will well up humility in the hearts of our leaders to make apologies or adjustment when these things are necessary. Pour out a spirit of cooperation between our elected leaders and break down the barriers that may be built up by selfish ambition for personal power. Safeguard the marriages and families of elected leaders who spend large portions of their time away from home. God, give our leaders clarity to know what issues are most important to dedicate their time toward, and soften the hearts of our leaders to hear and understand the needs of the communities. Bring the spirit of harmony and righteousness among the staff members who work to support each elected leader, and give us all the grace and wisdom that flows from you so that we may be able to be pleasing to you in all that we do. For all your blessings, we give you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday.
Here.
Director Elaine Jones. Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Carol Weatherford.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda, or items to be moved from consent agenda to new business?
So move the
Got a motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Trusty. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. This time we'll consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of September 20th, 2022. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Director Trustee, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. We have Vicki Gillum, Vice President of Economic Development for Hot Springs Metro Partnership, and she'll deliver the monthly economic development report. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a report for Gary at the Chamber. On September 1st, he and Don Benton had a Zoom call with Donald Westerman, Amanda Porter, and April Shepard from Lake Hamilton School about draft day, which is coming along great at this point. Gary and Don Benton attended a meeting on the 6th of September at DeGray Lodge about the Jones Mill site. Also in attendance were the Hot Spring County Judge, Judge Thornton, Rick McClure, Les Warren, Todd Green, and Lance Howell, who is the president of the Chamber in Malvern. On the 8th of September, Todd Green led a meeting with the Hot Springs Metro Partnership Board of Directors about a project with a local company, which will be a growing project for that company. On the 12th, Gary, Don, Cole, and I met with the company who's coming to Hot Springs, and they need some help with the site location. The Chamber, along with National Park College, hosted a lunch and learn on DEI with speakers Carol Gray and Minnie Lennox. The event was very successful and very well attended. There were about 55 people there. Don Benton and Gary drove to Duncan, Oklahoma, also on the 12th, and met with Lyle Rogo about a workforce issue. On the 13th, Gary, Don Cole, Scott Dews, Todd Green, and Mary Curry presented to the city board on the Majestic site. On the 14th, Gary and Cole and myself had dinner with a dinner meeting with the Ritter Broadband to see their progress. And they're out 70 west, not to Lake Hamilton School, but they're out that way and a lot further than they had expected to be at this point. On the 18th, Cole and Gary attended an economic development conference in Oklahoma City, and there were 14 other Arkansans there. Stan Little with Southern Airways spoke at the Hot Springs National Park Rotary on the 21st. The 22nd, Gary met with the local business about a new economic development project. And on the 27th, several met with Congressman Westerman at Blakely Mountain. And that day also there was another Majestic meeting. And also on that day, several from Hot Springs and Malvern met Congressman Westerman at Jones Mill Industrial Park to try to move forward with that project. On the 28th, myself and Don Benton and Gary Les Warren helped with the Financial Reality Fair at Hot Springs High School, which was put on by Diamond Lakes Federal Credit Union. And it was all of the seniors came through and learned how to budget. And it was fun. On the 29th, there was Education Council meeting. On this week, Don and Gary are in New Orleans at a workforce conference. And that sums it up. And if there are any questions, I may not can answer them, but I can take them down and get them to Gary.
Will you explain draft day, because that's a term that you didn't spend any time on?
Draft day is, it's held at Lake Hamilton School. This is the second year for this particular type of draft day. And all of the schools in this area, and I think they're going to go all the way into some of the schools in Oklahoma, will be coming to Lake Hamilton, and there will be industry set up there. There will be businesses set up there. The truck that comes in where it simulates driving a truck and that sort. All of these type of things will be there, and so they can help these students if they want to go to college. Great, that there will be that there as well. But mainly what it is if they want to get into the workforce, it's going to show them training and how they can get training to go directly into the workforce, or a technical school or something like that, if a 4-year college is not what they're looking for. And it was very successful last year. So.
Anyone else have questions for Vicki? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear from the city manager for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Want to start off with just announcing that Boo at the Badge will be at Hot Springs High School again this year, Hot Springs World Class High School, 5 p.m. until it runs out on October 31st. And the reason I bring that up today is they are accepting candy note donations, and those are greatly appreciated. Phenomenal amount of kids that came out to that event last year. And just appreciate the chief and all of those that are involved in that project. And again, candy donations are greatly appreciated. They can be dropped off at the police station at 641 Malvern Avenue. Operation Clean Sweep. The city's 4th Operation Clean Sweep for this year is scheduled for October the 10th through the 28th to include approximately 425 address points between Malvern Avenue and Stacy Street. Neighborhood Services inspectors will go door to door next week, dropping off information packets, inspecting for violations of the property maintenance code. The following week, October 17th to the 21st, will be an amnesty week, during which the solid waste and CABS trucks will be in the area to pick up any bulky items the residents may want to leave at curbside. This is a free service provided by CABS during that time and will not be deducted from the 2 free pickups the residents normally get throughout the year. And of course, on that 3rd week, our compliance officers will be back in the neighborhood to see if any of those notices that they found had been corrected. Want to mention that our July sales tax revenues were up in July. They came in about 4.5%, 4.56 higher than July of 2021, making the year-to-date increase 8.09%. have several projects happening throughout the city, overnight milling and overlaying on the MLK Expressway. In what is a $4 million investment in our community, RDOT is milling and overlaying approximately 3.3 miles of the Dr. Martin Luther King Expressway between Central Avenue and Malvern Avenues. Crews are working overnight from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The project is expected to be completed by the end of the month, but we want to make sure our citizens and residents are aware of that and use caution during that area from those time frames, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Another huge RDOT assisted project. This is one that our city engineer, Gary Carnahan, has been very involved in, and this is the paving of Lakeshore Drive. It was a resurfacing project that was part of the RDOT State Aid Street Program. We recently completed that. As you know, Lakeshore is one of our city's arterial streets that really connects two state highways. It was resurfaced from Higdon Ferry to Jennison Square, and appreciate all those that worked on that. That was a huge endeavor, and they really got in and out pretty quick, but I drove it just the other day, and it's a really nice surface that we were able to get laid down there. We hear a lot about streets and our roads now, and when are we going to start using that money? What's happening with the money? And we got our first check from the July collections. We got our first check this month. Both Garland County and the city of Hot Springs, that amounted to right at $1.5 million. As you break that down per capita, each city within the county receives a portion of that. The city received $567,000, the county $914,000, and then the remaining went to Mountain Pine, Fountain Lake, and Lonsdale. So that was our first check, and as you know, all of this road money that comes in from Our Roads Now will be strictly for repairing and resurfacing streets within our city limits and in the county. Hope Work collected 220 bags of litter in September. This is the program that we are in partnership with Jackson House and Hope Works themselves. This is a program where we actually hire some that are in the homeless community that sign up to work in this program. They collected 220 bags, which we were really pleased on that. That's about twice the amount that they picked up in any other month. I don't really know if that's good or bad that we have that much litter or that they're doing that great of a job, but really appreciate the efforts there and glad to see that project and program continues to be very successful. Our Parks and Trails Department, they've begun the Christmas decorations. I know we're the first week of October, but if you've been around Hot Springs during Christmas and have seen all the Christmas lights that this group puts up, you'll understand why it takes that amount of time. We should wrap up with all of the lace bark elm trees in the downtown area, wrapping those. They were doing that all throughout the week, and really makes our downtown look great and looks so different when you drive down that corridor and have all the lights that are lit up on the trees. So those will be coming on soon. They've also been decorating Exchange Street parking deck as well as the Hillwood Plaza. Those will be turned on during the Tom Daniel Holiday Chili Cook-Off, which is scheduled for Monday, November 21st. But you'll see crews down there working throughout the next 6 weeks, getting ready for that project or for that lighting. I also want to say that the city was very pleased to celebrate the first phase of the Malvern Avenue Corridor project with the Gateway Community Association. This was this past Saturday, and it was the Malvern Avenue kickoff. The city had several booths, including engineering, police, stormwater, public information, just to share information not only about the Malvern project, but all the city services and projects that we have going on. So I want to thank all the employees that took part in that, as well as the Gateway community themselves. And then finally, I want to say congratulations to Officers Stephen Parrott and James Moore. Director Trusty and Director Holliday were able to join me at the Arkansas Chiefs Association banquet last Thursday evening. Two of our police officers were honored for their actions and bravery during a shooting that took place earlier this year. Officer Parrott and Officer Moore received the Officer of the Year award. That was very well deserving. Just want to say thank you to both of those officers for their actions and bravery, as well as to our whole team at the Hot Springs Police Department for their service to our community each and every day. Thank you for what you do. Mayor, that completes my report.
Very good. Thank you. Director. We're on upcoming events. Do directors have an upcoming event they'd like to announce? Director Garcia.
I just remind people that if you aren't registered to vote, you have a week to get registered, or if you're a new resident in this city, you or if you've moved since you've last voted, you just are required to file a change of address one-page form.
Very good. Thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is comprised of items that do not require individual discussion, so we take action on them in mass. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Director Garcia, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. We have one item of old business, and it's consider resolution R-22-133. That's city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-133, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 322 Pleasant Valley Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs-Smith, seconded by Director Trustee, and our staff report will be provided by Chief Building Official, Mr. Mike Scott. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. This was one that we brought to y'all before, and it got tabled because the new owner. So now the new owner, y'all decided to give him some time to do some work. And he has done some work. He's cleaned up the yard, built a privacy fence, trying to make it look nicer. I've spent a lot of time talking with him of the process and, and what we're expecting from him and everything. Spent some time this afternoon doing that so I could get a perfectly updated report for y'all. So I went there this afternoon. He was there, and we talked about it, and so there's pictures of it. The house doesn't have a foundation under it, so it's got a lot of damage to it. It's very structurally unstable, and I talked to him about that, and that would be something he would need to address, very soon. So I would still like to condemn it because that would keep him working, and he understands that. I've talked to him. He's here. Arterio's here, so I think he wants to talk.
Well, not necessarily. I feel like, good evening. Not necessarily. I've done what I've said I was going to do. I've secured the perimeter as best I can of the property. Now I plan to secure the borders of the house and assess what I can with the structure.
Okay, so any action we take tonight, such as condemnation, doesn't mean that we're going to be out there tomorrow, but you just really need to work closely with Mike Scott and keep him apprised of your timetable and the work to be done, because our goal here is to give you some time to fix it, but not maintain a structure that's in an unsafe condition.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll talk to him in length about the two options. Y'all may just throw it out, or it may get condemned. And I told him it was not a last resort if it got condemned. As long as he was keep working on it, I'd never walk up there and tell you to get out of the way so I could tear it down. And I told him if it did come to that, he would know weeks before, because I'd let him know. So I told him it wouldn't be, hey, we're going to show up tomorrow. That's not our intent. Our intent is I hope he fixes it. And if he does, that's great. It saves you and I money, and he gets the house fixed. So, but either way.
I also wanted to just add too that I do know a lot of my neighbors. They are very happy about what I'm doing. I'm going in a positive step, and I'm going to do the best that I can.
Well, very good. Well, thank you. Any questions of the directors for Mr. Scott?
I have a question.
Director Dobbs-Smith?
Is there a point where he's done so many improvements that we can withdraw the condemnation?
Yes, ma'am. I talked to him about that. I said my intent is when I drive by, I don't slow down. You know what I mean? And I told him to focus on the outside. Don't spend a lot of money and time right now on the inside. That's not what anybody sees. I want him to focus on the outside, focus on the structural stability of the house. And once all that's done, I don't have a problem with it. We can close it out, because then he can take his time inside. I just want it structurally stable and I want it to look good in the neighborhood. You know, just a little paint on it, and, you know, then we're fine. So,
Thank you.
Very good.
It sounds like you're both in agreement on that.
yeah, I mean, we've talked at length, and I mean, we get along very well, so.
Good.
Safety, safety, safety.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
agree
Yes,
with
sir.
this. I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I understand.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we have anybody else that want to speak on this matter? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution's approved. Now we're under new business. The first item under new business is to consider Resolution R-22-154, and I'll call upon the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-154, a resolution awarding a contract to Gosley Construction Company, Inc. for Whittington Avenue improvements. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. Mr. Gary Carnahan, Engineering Director, will provide the staff report. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we're happy tonight to recommend to you that we award a contract to Gosley Construction Company for $682,230 to complete the streetscape improvements to Whittington Avenue. Whittington Avenue from Central Avenue to Baseball Trail Park is about 1.5 miles long. And so this project will provide, there are sidewalks along a lot of that route, but some of them are in poor condition. So we're going to remove and replace 16,555 square feet of sidewalks. We're going to have ADA ramps at all the intersections. About 2.5 miles of bike lanes, counting both sides of the road. So we'll have bike lanes up and back. And about 1/4 mile of that section will actually convert from bike lanes in the street to a 12-foot wide multi-use path like our Greenway Trail. So that will be part of the project. Some areas will remove pavement and create landscaped areas and landscape islands. 7,280 square feet of landscaped islands where we used to have asphalt, and over 3,000 square feet of rain gardens to help control the drainage. And included in the project also are 2 new bus shelters. So that, we're very excited about that project. The Whittington community has been supporting this and pushing for it for a long time, and we're glad that we were finally able to get approval from RDOT to bid the job, and we have a good contract. The unit prices that were bid on this project were lower than what we had seen recently, so it's actually came in below our budget. And so we'll look forward to working with our contractor and the community to see what other items we might add into positive change orders. We usually don't like change orders, but in this case, it would be an exception where we would like to have some. So I'm happy to present that to you and hope you'll vote to award that contract.
Any questions of Mr. Carnahan from directors? Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have one individual has signed up to speak on this, Mr. Mark Toth. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Mark Toth. I live in the Whittington Valley. I'm president of the Neighborhood Association. And as you can probably tell by the big smile on my face, I am delighted that after 8 years, 8 long years, this project is finally going to break ground. I want to thank the city, Bill, especially for stepping forward 8 years ago and committing city funds as a match for this grant. We're going to get work done in 1 year that probably would have taken 15 to 20 years. That's how transformative this work will be for our neighborhood. I want to thank Gary. We have worked hand in glove with Gary, developing the plan. The Neighborhood Association took an active role in soliciting letters of support, building interaction with the community and the stakeholders. working on a preliminary plan that would address some of the stakeholders' concerns, trying to shortlist the amount of work that Gary had to do. And I'm not minimizing it. Gary still did the yeoman's work, but it shows what can happen when a neighborhood association and the city work hand in glove. This is a great project. We're all very excited to see it done. And again, I want to thank the city, the staff. This is going to be a great project for our neighborhood.
Very good.
Any questions?
Any questions, Mark?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst Mr. Carnahan? Come forward.
Mayor, I forgot to say something very important, is that 80% of that cost that you would award the contract tonight will be reimbursed by the federal government through a FLAP grant. So the city's portion is only going to be $136,000.
Thank you. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. At this time, we'll move on to consider Resolution R-22-155, and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-155, a resolution awarding a contract to RKG Associates, Inc. for certain housing strategy planning professional services for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and for other purposes. That concludes the reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion and a second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by? Second. Director Trustee. And our staff report will be provided by Kathy Salmon, Director of Planning and Development. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. When the winds of change blow, some people build walls while others build windmills. That's a Chinese proverb. I know we don't go to Chinese proverbs as much these days as we used to, but nonetheless, I think it offers an introduction to what we're talking about here tonight. Housing unaffordability, a depleted citywide affordable housing stock, and changes in the modern housing market since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic present real challenges for the Hot Springs housing market and for our low to moderate income residents. Decent, affordable housing is the bedrock of community and neighborhood development, as well as our future economic development. The city seeks now a unified approach to housing that brings together community stakeholders and gives the city, local nonprofits, and housing developers a game plan for future prioritized development. According to U.S. Census 2021 figures, 20.3% of Hot Springs lives below the poverty line. With a large tourism economy, Hot Springs has a substantial number of relatively low-paying service industry jobs held primarily by permanent residents who are dependent on seasonal tourism upcycles and downcycles. The fair market rent for a two-bedroom home in Hot Springs is $807 a month. That's a 2021 number, and I think we may be a little low there. A resident making state minimum wage of $11 an hour must work 43 hours minimum per week to afford the fair market rent rate. And that comes from a study done in 2021 by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, and specifically targets Arkansas. This issue doesn't solely affect low-income individuals. The average full-time salaried position in Hot Springs pays $37,000. This means that full-time salaried position residents must contribute 33.6% of their monthly income after taxes and before other expenses solely towards rent to afford the average habitable fair market rent rate housing. Sensible personal finance principles typically recommend that no more than 30% of your income goes to housing cost. Price escalation affects everyone, but disproportionately affects, some senior, disabled, student, ethnic, and low-income working households. Affordable places are unavailable to rent or purchase, or what is available and affordable is not the kind of housing that people need. Both the house and itself and a neighborhood that is safe, walkable, near transit, and with other life necessities nearby are unavailable, especially for people who rent. The city's current affordable housing tools, funding, and incentives are not enough to reach goals. Housing is expensive to build, and the cost of building new housing continues to increase. Our housing policies have not consistently addressed housing stability and healthy housing. This summer, the board agreed upon 5 SMART goals for 2023, and affordable housing is one of the 5. Specifically, that goal looks to develop a housing strategy and to hire and fund someone to assist with that plan and work with the public so that what we get is something that provides targeted activities along with the city's commitment to complete those activities by a certain date. This is different from other plans that we have done in the past and presents something that represents a commitment by our city to do certain things. Tonight, we bring a resolution to the board to enter into a contract with RKG Associates for $63,550 to customize a Hot Springs housing strategy. The resolution proposes a 50-50 cost share between general funds to be targeted to affordable housing and federal community development block grant funds for which this action is an eligible use. This targeted effort can aid Hot Springs to address homelessness and poverty in the city. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, mandates a housing first model in that the best data-driven approach to addressing homelessness is through providing homeless individuals with housing first and then providing wraparound services to stabilize individuals and help them to address other life issues. In consultation with area homeless service providers and nonprofits, they have identified that the main issue affecting their ability to end homelessness in Hot Springs is a lack of housing into which homeless individuals can transition. Providing more affordable, decent rooms, more houses, more apartments in the city will only improve the city's response to homelessness. RKG Associates participated in a competitive bid process and scored the highest out of 5 respondents. RKG has proposed an 8-month schedule from the contract signing to having a final strategy for the city to consider. RKG has extensive experience aiding communities to develop housing strategies, and they've worked with other communities with some similarity to Hot Springs, such as Boone, North Carolina, and Dothan, Alabama. RKG Associates is well suited to assist the city to produce a roadmap for housing development. Melding RKG Associates' expertise with the awareness and understanding of our local stakeholders, and they will include area nonprofits, community leaders, business representatives, including the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Hot Springs, real estate professionals, housing developers, and the community at large. The city aims to provide an actionable roadmap and a unified vision for how to address housing issues immediately and over the next 10 to 20 years. We ask the board to consider this professional services agreement with RKG Associates to develop a housing strategy. We cannot stop change, but we can decide how we wish to respond. So the question is, will it be walls or will it be windmills? And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Ms. Salmon?
I have a question.
Director Garcia?
You want to go first?
Oh, I'm
I have a
sorry.
question. You mentioned that it's a HUD requirement that we have a housing strategy. Could you elaborate on that?
It is not a HUD requirement that we have a housing strategy. It is a HUD requirement that every 5 years we do a study which they call the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice. And we are in year 4 of our most recent study. The AI, which is the short name for the analysis of impediments and so on, is, however, primarily a look back, looking at what we have done, and this is an entirely different animal. This is to help assess the feasibility of differing strategies to get us pointed in a direction where housing is available for all of the people in Hot Springs who would like to have access to housing. So that is an enormous task. And there are many, many possibilities as to what steps the board would like to take. So this will compare those possibilities, work with the stakeholders, including yourselves, and find those strategies that meet both our needs and the resources we think we will have to dedicate to meeting those needs.
So we're in year 4 of a 5-year requirement to look back on what we've done?
We will do a new AI in 2023. And again, what that will do is not so much point us in a direction. It really does not do that. It looks at what have we accomplished over the past 5 years.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to make sure that I have a clear understanding. So the portion of the general fund for cost would be less than $32,000. Is that correct?
It's, yes.
Yeah. And looking back at our review that I believe it was done at the end of 2018, and we received a report the beginning of 19, and it identified impediments at that time. And since that time, we have fewer available affordable housing available for anyone in Hot Springs, but we have not taken any specific actions to improve or remove any impediments since that time. And in researching this issue, it appears the governing body is required to take action and to respond about this type of issues. And I read where some cities, they waive property taxes for the developer or for a long period of time for long-term housing. However, we do not have a city property tax, so that's not an action we can take. If we have ideas, but and are given to the RKG, they will look at those and let us know what is feasible and the how-to, because
Yes.
We've had a discussion and had some potentially good ideas come up, but we didn't have the know-how of how to do that
Right.
specifically. And it appears that this is the company that could bring us to that how-to and make it actionable.
Yes.
And there was a lot of questions that they will help answer, and it appears that they have an expertise that we do not have in-house, as well as our staffing is about 30 employees short currently for our where we're trying to fill positions, and we know that makes it harder in places more responsibilities on other, that it's not unusual for contracts of this nature to be utilized to do these type of actionable work and to help us get there sooner. Like you said, it appears that by the end of next year, we would be in another, I believe you called it the AI, but it's another review, and this is what HUD will look at. And I, as part of the governing body, I want to be able to respond and have an action plan that we will go forth, that we can make affordable improvements to our community for housing for those in need. And I believe it would help everyone in the process. So I understand the need, and I don't see it as another study. I see it as assisting getting that action plan in place that we desperately needed. Because if worst case scenario ever occurred and we lost any of our HUD housing, we would have many more homeless and many more at risk. We would be a much worse off community, and businesses would be much worse off on finding employees than they have now. So I support this agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Director Weatherford?
She used the word study again, just like you used the word study 3 times in your presentation and agenda. This said study twice. And I read RKG's proposal. Almost had me convinced until we got up here and started saying, homeless, is this for homeless? Or is this for affordable housing for people who to afford houses? Because homeless and affordable housing is 2 different things.
Yeah, absolutely true. And what we have to do is to look at housing and what is available for people in many different situations. Our workforce is struggling to find adequate housing that meets their needs. That's just the way it is.
I agree with you on that. I mean, there's no doubt that in our work session that we had, we talked about affordable housing, and I'm all for trying to figure out the problem and getting affordable housing solved. But I said at the same time, I was not for another study or someone to come in here and tell us. I asked before we do this if we could have a roundtable with contractors, developers, bankers, investors, city staff, whoever it may be, and come up with some ideas would help, which was, to me, would be, once again, to the developers and the builders, to do away with permits. If you built affordable housing, and we came up with a number. Our problem right now is that a lot of agencies do not have enough help. I'm trying to build some right now. I can't get water to. We've been working over 6 weeks to try to get water to it, and it's the health department I can't get water. I can't start a project, got money invested, can't do anything. To me, we should have had at least one work session where we had those people here before we ever did anything like this, because I think we could have solved a lot of our problem that way.
I think that you may recall that we do have an ability to waive permit
Yes.
fees
But
for
we have to
affordable
pass that
housing
again, yes.
providers, which is a big step.
Well, it's not only doing away with permits, but it's being able to build on some of these lots that that are buildable, but we can't build on them because there's a code that says you can't split a lot, you can't do this, it's in the wrong area, whatever. That's something we should have been looking at. We don't need to pay $65,000 to somebody that's not from here, has no idea what's going on here. It's got to come in here and pull the work sessions themselves, talk to everybody to find out, which we could have done ourselves. So I'm that's my feelings on the situation.
Director Garcia?
I would just share with you that I have had phone calls from people that have become homeless because their landlord converted their rental house to a short-term rental, and they became homeless because of that. So they couldn't find other housing to go to, so they've been couch surfing or staying from one person. And I've talked with single mothers with little children, with school-age children, that this creates very much trauma for them and for their children. These are working people trying to do the best they can, and they can't find a place to live. They weren't late on rent. It didn't have anything to do with them, but they didn't have an alternative once that house was taken away from them to find housing. So there is some relation to homelessness when the house is no longer made available for long-term rental. And I would hope that we would have affordable housing in place to prevent that from continuing in our community.
Workforce housing is a huge need.
Any further questions or discussion? Further questions of Ms. Selman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody sign up?
No, sir.
Discussion amongst directors?
I just have a hard time believing that. I've seen all the lack of word studies or whatever you want to call them that we have paid for, and they come in and tell us something, and a lot of it doesn't ever come to fruition. I can't imagine someone from somewhere else coming in here and telling us about this community when you could have, like I said, developers and builders and contractors and bankers. And it's going to get worse. Interest has gone up. It's going to cost you more to build a house now. Building materials are down, but it's dropped 50% or better. But it's fixing to go back up because of the hurricane in Florida. I'm waiting for that to happen. Interest rate has gone back up. It's going, I just don't. The problem with affordable housing is that we've got to be, if we had a meeting where we could say, okay, this is what we need to do. To be able to build an affordable house, it's got to be a certain size for someone to live in. Some lots you can't do that on because you got to have a certain size lot and a certain amount of footage to build on that lot. So, something we should have looked at before we did this. I would hate for us to pay them $65,000 and they come in and tell us the very same thing I'm telling you right now. I can't vote for this. I'm for affordable housing, but I can't vote for a study.
But I think when I read their proposal, it was much broader than what you're suggesting.
Theirs, if you read all of the proposals, theirs is actually less pages, but says more than the others that are more pages. I mean, to me. And that's why I said that it had me convinced until we started talking homeless, and that's two different things. Yes,
But they
there's
did
homeless
also talk
because of
about
STRs.
public-private partnerships and different arrangements, and these are things that are, I think outside consultants have a better handle on that than a better understanding and how it's been applied in other communities and what works and what hasn't worked, and we don't need to go down a path and trip and fall when we can receive the appropriate guidance. I think there's been a lot of discussion tonight regarding homelessness, affordable housing, and workforce housing, and those are all different categories within this study. And so, I think they're all important. That workforce housing is vitally important, especially for this community and many other communities, in that we really would love to have people live where they work and not have to drive into town, drive in 20 miles or 30 miles, because they can get what they consider something they can afford in the country, when they really prefer to be here in Hot Springs with the varied school districts that are available to them. So, about half the funds are going to be paid through the Community Development Block Grant, the other half through the general fund. So I think in the long term, it's money well spent. I understand your point with regards to studies that sit on a shelf. These studies really need to be implementation plans and not studies. I think we really need to be able to sit and have, as Director Garcia said, there has to be an action at the conclusion of this, not just another space on a shelf cleared. So I'll pause here, allow others to make comment if they so choose. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Weatherford.
I'm not voting against affordable housing, but I am voting against this study. So no.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. We'll move on to Resolution R-22-156 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-156, a resolution declaring certain structure located at 208 Clara Street a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt. So moved. Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobbs. And our staff report is again provided by Chief Building Official Mike Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you. This is single-family residence located in District 2. Neighborhood Services has had a file on this property dating back to 2001. The property is owned by LaRon Christmas of Springdale. Issues that make this property a nuisance include collapsed carport roof, missing soffit and fascia, and addition in the rear of this house has deteriorated and collapsed. Faulty and outdated electrical service. Notice of these proceedings were issued, and we have received confirmation from Mr. Christmas. In addition to certified notice, a notice was attached to the structure. On September 19th, Mr. Christmas came to the planning department and obtained a building permit. And that permit was for $50,000 to begin bringing the structure into compliance. However, given the history and condition of this structure, we wish to proceed with condemnation at this time. We will not proceed with removal of the structure if the repairs are started and progress is being made. Recently occupied, this was occupied by a squatter also.
Any questions of Mr. Scott? Thank you. Mr., was there any question? No? Mr. Christmas, you wanted to come forward and restate your name, please, address, and
Yes, my name is LaRon Christmas. I'm the owner of 208 Clara, and I plead not to condemn the property of my mother that was in the military. She died when I was 5 years old. I do struggle with finance struggle, and I had my uncle had difficulty getting him out the house, very difficult. And I got a childhood friend that applied for the loan, and it takes up to 6 weeks to get the loan. So we asking for at least 120 days to get it applied for the loan, so we get the capital and fix it up and move on forward.
but the loan is going to be in your friend's name, not
Well,
your-
he applied. He's a childhood friend. He applied for it. I can show paperwork, and the lender says it takes about 6 weeks, and we want to bring it up to code, and we want to rent it out. I live in Springdale. He live in Atlanta.
Oh, you're in Springdale, Arkansas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's your occupation?
Oh, I'm a trailer mechanic, DC Transport.
Is there anybody living in the, there's nobody in the house now? The, as you heard, you were here for the earlier condemnation that, if permits are taken out, Mr. Scott will work with you as long as he continues to see progress. And normally, any action would be taken for at least 30 days. You're asking for 6 weeks, which is, beyond that, so. This application been filed yet?
Oh yes, absolutely. I can show paperwork. My friend, he wanted to come, but he had due to work.
Mm-hmm.
But we can actually show that he applied for the loan, and the lender says it takes
What's
about.
the loan is through who? What
I'm
entity?
not for sure where the loan from because he got it in his name, but I can show paperwork that he applied for the loan, and we getting the process started.
Director Garcia?
What was the date of the loan application?
I don't have none of the information right here above, but I can give it to him. I can present it to him probably tomorrow.
But it was before today.
Yes, absolutely. It's
And-
probably about I want to say probably about a week ago for the loan, and the lender says it takes up to 6 weeks to actually get the finance.
To get it approved?
Yes, absolutely.
So 30 days would be at the 5-week mark. And if you're working with, our department manager here on this, if y'all are staying in contact, he would, I would think, a week leeway either way.
Yeah, I don't mind. If he shows me some paperwork, I can absolutely hold off for 6-7 weeks. Something I'll have proof of. He does currently have a city dumpster there and is cleaning up some of the property. So, but if somebody's got proof that they're moving forward and it's just not on our timeline, but it's close, I don't have a problem waiting. Our last choice is to spend the city's money to tear something down we don't
Right.
own.
So we could act on it today, and you would.
Yes, sir.
You would
And
monitor it
I
like
can-
you do all
here in
the
front
other
of everybody, I'll
projects.
tell you, if he's got legitimate documents and he's doing it, I'll give him time, no problem.
All right.
So,
Thank you, Mike.
progress.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
No.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Mr. Christmas, you got about 30-plus days to,
We'll stay in
demonstrate to Mike.
We've got a good contact with for him, so we're
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, call me. Yes, sir. All right, thank you.
And that was 156. That was 156. Now we'll go on to consider resolution R-22-157 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-157, a resolution declaring a certain structure located at 1104 Park Avenue a nuisance and condemning same pursuant to Title 17 of the Hot Springs Code. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion to second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Holliday, seconded by
Second.
Director Trustee. And again, Mike Scott, Chief Building Official, will
Thank you,
provide the
sir.
staff report.
1104 Park Avenue. This is a single-family structure located in District 1. Neighborhood Services had a file on this property since 1996. The property is owned by Mr. Dragon Vicentic, who lives here in Hot Springs. The structure has been vacant for many years, and while there have been permits issued in the past, the work remains incomplete. Violations that make this property a nuisance include missing soffit fascia, missing windows and doors, missing handrails over balconies, improperly installed wiring and electrical services. We have ran vagrants out of there numerous times. Mr. Vicentic has received numerous notices and citations requesting that the repairs be made to the structure to no avail. Notice of these proceedings was sent to Mr. Vicentic and a placard was placed on the structure. It is my understanding that he wanted to talk to us tonight, but he is not in town. So I just thought I'd let y'all know. Is somebody here? Oh, he is back there. I didn't see. Sorry. That was my last conversation. I heard that he was not
All
going to
right.
be in town.
Any questions of Mr. Scott? Director Garcia?
When did this file begin?
1996.
1996?
Now, 26 years ago. My kids are 26.
I just want to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any further questions of Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
I didn't get to see the pictures. I mean, I drove by there and those are some old pictures because that's not how it looks today.
Yeah, the tarp's not on it today. It's got some weird structure on top. He had a contractor that he was working with previously, and that contractor did some work and never received any inspections.
And there's windows in all those holes. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no missing windows that I saw. And there's doors and it is locked up and it is covered.
He pulled a permit.
And it is, I mean, you know, a couple weeks ago we condemned the old field house, and I could see condemning it because I could see soffit and fascia, and he showed us some good pictures of the interior. When this one came up, I drove up there, and this one is in no worse shape than the one that's in front of it, or the one down the street. It has no windows in it for sure, or the Royal Vista, or the one across from the Royal Vista, whatever that is, whatever they want to call it now, Fox Run or something, whatever it is. And we've already taken on a big one to if you condemn, you've got it condemned. If you got to tear it down, it's going to use most of your budget. Are you ready to use the rest of your budget on another house?
Well, condemnation is a process of what we do to try to get them to move to the next step and actually do something. Because, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to go in there and tear it down. Like you said, I may not have the money, but I might.
Well,
And if
I
it
agree with nearly
becomes a
everything
problem,
that we've
we will tear it
condemned
down.
because you showed us pictures that
Yeah.
that needed to be condemned. The reason I voted no on the last one is because if the man really has gone to the bank, condemnation is going to kill his loan. No bank's going to loan him money on a condemned house unless he's really good with the bank. I mean, I'll just, you know, we have ruined his opportunity to get that loan by condemning it. And there are other structures that, to me, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the condemnation list or the list that is proposed or to be looked at. There's probably 200 houses on there.
More.
Huh?
More.
And there are houses that we should be being looked at, because like I said, this one is in no worse shape than the one in front. I haven't seen anybody come to us saying we want to condemn that, or the nursing home down the street. It absolutely has no windows in it, no telling what's living in there. The Royal Vista, which we don't know what's living in there, and it's, the whole front of that thing is gone. So, you know, I think we need to be concentrating on the really bad ones, not the ones that are like this. I mean, so.
Any further
Those-
questions or comments?
We should have, that's a 21 picture, 620, I mean, we always get to see pictures of it yesterday or the last week, and we don't have any of those pictures here.
Moving forward with this process, what causes them to do what you're seeing today? 6 months ago, none of that was there, but he knew we were taking it to you guys. So that triggers people to take action.
Yeah.
You know, going to court did not trigger any action. None. We've been doing this since 1996. The house before you was 2001. Honestly, I don't want to live next door to either one of these.
Any more questions of Mike? Hearing none. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
And we have, we'll give an opportunity for Mr. Vicentic to come forward, and if he wishes to, and address the board on this property and what your plans are. Please restate your name and address and district, please.
Dragon Vicentic, 119 Winding Ridge. Good evening, board, Harmony, Bill, Mayor, and Brian. I want to give you a little history on the structure, and as far as the file being 26 years on, I don't know where you got that information. I did purchase the property 26 years ago at an auction in 1997. The older part of the house, the white stucco part with the gable roof, was the original house that was there before they built the Mountain Air hotel next door. And then they added the brick deco look on the front that you see on the house to kind of mimic the two hotels that they built next door, the Mountain Air. But in 1997, when I purchased it, I completely gutted the whole structure. I spent over $100,000 at that time, and put in all new electrical, all new plumbing, sheetrock, air conditioning, everything. It was a brand new house, and we actually lived there for about 8 years. And then we decided we wanted the kids to go to Lakeside School District, so we moved to a different part of Hot Springs. I continued to lease it out, rent it out to people coming into the building. Then the structure that was under the blue tarp that you saw in some of the pictures, there was an issue with the flat roof, so he built another roof on top of the flat roof to shed off the water that you have a hard time with a lot of times with flat roofs. Now, shortly after that, Mike Scott turned the power off to the property, which we never understood why. And then I received a letter from James Hardage on June 10th with several violations. Now, June 10th is the date on that letter. I received it 4, 5, 6 days later. So let's take 16th or 17th on when I actually put hands on it and read it. Then 4 days later, on June 21st, I obtained another building permit because I was told that my building permit of November 2020 was no longer valid, which I didn't understand why it wasn't. I mean, we had effectively been working on it ever since. But at any rate, on June 21st, 2021, I picked up another building permit. So 3 days later, after I got the building permit, I get an Arkansas criminal citation with several violations. And I always thought that the reason for the letters, such as the one that I read on June 17th, was to repair the property. So the next step in repairing the property is you get a building permit. I got a building permit. So why did I get a criminal citation 3 days later? I mean, there's an agenda here that is far and beyond just fixing this property. And that agenda is several people that live in that neighborhood that are using their political clout to try to condemn it, remove the property, make a park out of it, whatever it is that they have in their minds. I mean, this is mind-boggling. I have over 30 properties. I've never been convicted of a housing violation. Tracy or Patty Beasy, when she was still here, when they had an issue with Indiandale Shopping Center or one of the other properties, they would call me up. They had my personal cell phone. They'd say, hey, Dragon, you know, check this out or fix this or fix that. It was never an issue. You know, all of a sudden, I'm convicted of violations on a house. And by the way, here's a couple pictures that my maintenance guy took a couple days ago, which, you know, the planning department, now they're not going to show these pictures. If you want to look at that. So a week ago, James Hartage shows up at my business with a consideration of notice for condemnation signed by Mike Scott. So immediately I sent Mike an email, and let me read you what that email said. It said, "Good afternoon, Mike. You know, I'm getting sick and tired of all the political pressure and bullying I have experienced lately regarding the property I own at 1104 Park Avenue in Hot Springs. Will you please give me a list of what is not compliant? And also, I would like to make an FOIA request of the whole file of the same property." So his response was, FOI requests have to go through the city clerk's office. I will get the list from James for the outside items. Here we are 7, 8 days later. I haven't received that list. Why don't I have a list of what he's got a problem with? Does anybody have an answer? So moving forward, the gable end structure is solid. It's stucco. There are no structure or foundation issues. The flat roof part that was built in the 50s with the yellow brick facade that resembles the next door mountain air structure is also solid. It's concrete and brick. It's painted. I've had my maintenance people paint it. I've had them repair the doors of homeless people that kick in the doors. They go by there every couple of weeks. They check it. I've got a deputy friend of mine that lives just a couple blocks down the street. He stops in there every couple days to check to make sure the doors are locked, that the place is solid. You have the Royal Vista, like Mr. Weatherford mentioned. You got the apartments behind Redbeards. You got the old Mountain Air next door. You got the old Rosecliff nursing home down the street. You got the Arlington that has bricks falling on people's heads. And you guys are worried about this property that isn't bothering anybody? Again, it's solid. There's no structural issues with it. There was a picture of a house early on in this meeting where it was being held up by a couple blocks put on the end of it. The front porch was leaning to one side. Yeah, that's condemnable. I wouldn't walk under that porch. But there's nothing about this house that's condemnable. It's solid. The structure's solid. The foundation is solid. Nothing's falling on you when you walk by. There is no reason for this condemnation proceeding other than these people in the neighborhood that keep calling Mike or that he's friends with. I don't know. But there's no reason for it. And I haven't seen any pictures that show any foundation issues or any structural issues. So, I'm asking the board to deny this request by the planning department because you've got a bunch of other properties that are in a lot worse shape than this one.
I kind of lost the timeline. You acquired it in 1997?
Yeah, I bought it in 1997. It took me about a year to build it. We lived there for 8 years.
And you put 150,000?
100,000.
100,000 in it, lived in it for 8 years,
Right.
and moved to a home in the Lakeside School District.
Right.
And what year was it that you relocated?
It was around 2005.
So between 2005 and 2020, it went into some kind of great state of disrepair, or?
No. From 2005, when we moved, we've had tenants there until, I don't know exactly how long it's been vacant. But I needed to fix the front flat roof, which I've had a little bit of an issue with. But no, it has not been vacant since 2005.
Okay, so you rented it then for a period of time?
Yes.
And then I thought you said then you acquired it in 2020. Am I missing? Did you sell it and get it back?
No. So 2020, I tried to sell it to Jason Vanderhoof.
Okay.
And he's the one that repaired the roof on the gable end part. He's the one that built the structure over the flat roof that we were having an issue with to shed the water off. And then Mike Scott turned the power off. And later, when we went to court over the violations, the judge actually ruled that Mike shouldn't have turned the power off. So he was immediately forced to reinstate the power being on in the building. But the reason Jason Vanderhoof hasn't continued is he applied for a loan, but he couldn't get a loan. So we have still been discussing maybe me financing it to him. He also builds pools. He's in Florida right now doing that for the season. When he gets back, we've already discussed him continuing work on what he had started on the roof part.
Any additional questions from directors?
No, I will add a little clarity to your timeline. I moved back here in 2010. I was the one who did the project next door. If you remember, we did a bunch of art stuff on the property, and since then, nobody has lived in it. So, Mayor, you're asking how long it's been vacant. At least as long as I have lived in this town, it has been vacant and in some form of this ever since then.
So that makes it condemnable?
I think
Because
that
the Royal Vista's been empty longer than that, and we're
we're
not
not
condemning
talking about
it.
the Royal Vista.
But I'm saying, you're saying it's been empty, like that makes it condemnable. That doesn't make it condemnable.
Well,
Ma'am.
Point of order.
Yeah, Director Garcia.
So the house has not been empty since, it's been having work done on it, and you have a current permit.
Yes, I do.
And there seems to be discrepancy between this information and the file. I'd like to get into a little more detail than what we have in current pictures, and move to table this to the next meeting on the 18th.
So the understanding is there's an open permit. Inspectors can enter the premises to inspect the premises, and we'll table this until the next board meeting.
I do have an open permit, yeah.
So that's in a form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to table?
Second.
We have Director Dobbs-Smith tables, makes a second to table. Please call the roll on the motion to table.
Director Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
no.
Dobbs-Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Motion to table is approved, and we'll hear this again
Thank you.
on the 18th of October. Thank you. And in that period of time, let's we have each have an opportunity to go out and view the property, and if Mike and his staff can get current information. Thank you. Now we have two ordinances to close out our evening activity. The first will be ordinance number O-22-40, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only. So moved.
Second.
Director Trustee, second by Director Garcia. I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules, read by title only. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-40, an ordinance approving a purchase of a certain Kohler generator from RP Power LLC for the Davidson Drive wastewater treatment plant pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated section 14-58-104, paren 21, close paren, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobbs-Smith, seconded by Director Trustee. Well, you're not Monty. Welcome. Welcome. Go right ahead with the staff report. Thank you. Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Pillar.
Todd Pillar, Project Manager. This is for our Davidson Drive wastewater treatment plant project to help us with our consent administrative order. And the generator was designed and specified by Brown Engineers and Christian Engineers. And back in June, RP Power took it upon themselves to
the generator's been designed for a while, and they took them on themselves to put in a purchase order to Kohler up in Wisconsin for the generator. And it is a pretty good sized generator. It'd be the largest of our fleet in the city. Give you an idea, the Ouachita water plant is a 2,000 kW generator. Our new water plant off of Amity Road is a 1750, and this one is 2,500. And it was brought up in the agenda meeting about the warranty on the generator, and it is 3 years from startup. So this generator is not going to ship until September of next year. So we'll have 3 years from September 23, so the warranty will go to 26. Purchasing the generator directly from Kohler will save us on further price increases, and will eliminate the contractor's markup and profit on the generator, which is about $150,000 to $200,000. And because of the delivery, and we're going to be bidding our wastewater plant here probably by the end of the year, if generator's ready to ship and the contractor's not ready, Kohler will store it in Wisconsin for us until they're ready. And the purchase order price to RP Power will be in the amount of $1,095,323.03. And this is complete. This is material, freight, startup, and all the taxes. And as I mentioned before, all of our generators in the city are manufactured by Kohler, and this will be taken from the 2020 wastewater bond funds.
Very good. Any questions of Todd? Thank you. Any discussion amongst directors? Anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. Very good. Let's call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Our final action item of the evening is to consider ordinance O-22-41. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So
Director Garcia, seconded by Director Trustee. I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules to read by title only. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-41, an ordinance authorizing the destruction of certain district court records and for other purposes. That concludes reading. Mayor, if you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobbs Smith. And you're gonna, I'm sorry.
I am.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, Arkansas Code annotated section 16-10-211 prescribes the process and procedure by which records are retained by district courts in Arkansas, as well as the destruction of those records. As you can imagine, there are times when records build up and need to be destroyed. This statute sets out the numbers of years that certain records must be maintained. Some are permanent, some are 10, some are 3 years, and some can be destroyed after their time is up. Garland County, City of Hot Springs have, John Howard and I prepared reciprocal ordinances, mirror images of one another. The county has passed their ordinance. The ordinance that is before you this evening would adopt the process and the procedure that is specified within the state statute so that our district court can comply with that provision of state law. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Albright? No one signed up.
No, sir.
Any discussion amongst directors? No. Please call the roll.
Director Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. That completes the action items for this evening. We're now into board commentary. Does the board have any comments you'd like to make? Director Holliday.
I wanted to echo the city manager's comments about the Malvern Avenue kickoff. I was able to attend. I think a couple other people were there, and then also give a shout out. to city staff that were there and great and answered lots of questions and did giveaways and signed up people for recycling, and PD was there doing games with kids, and it was just really great to see a project like that come together, and then to have the volunteers in the neighborhood association and the city all there. And also wanted to give a shout out. We had someone from National Park College at the Capitol today for Arkansas Arts Advocacy Day, showing off a project that they're doing where they did some 3D scanning and modeling of the sculpture that the local artist Longwashu is doing. And so they did some demonstrations there in the Capitol Rotunda today for legislators and for other visitors from around the state. So just appreciated them showing off the cool stuff we've got going on in Hot Springs.
Clogs.
That's all right.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Last night was the National Night Out with the police, and I wanted to thank our police chief and assistant chief and the officers that came out to the Forest Lakes neighborhood and visited and spoke with residents. And we had, it was a great evening, and the newest canine officer, Patriot, was a big hit with everybody there, and is a beautiful dog. And his trainer, Tiffany, is just fantastic with him, and we support our entire Hot Springs Police Department. And lastly, I wanted to thank board and city staff and residents that have passed their condolences on to me. I was heartbroken last week when my mother passed, and I really appreciate the kind words I've received. Thank you.
Your prayers, you are in our prayers. So. I too was at the Gateway celebration festival Saturday afternoon. What I was impressed with was, always impressed with community coming together, but there were 2 black-owned businesses that received $1,000 each from an outside entity that wants to support black-owned businesses, and it was very, very nice. So 2 locally owned, black-owned businesses received some extra financial support, and beyond that, they also received 6 months' worth of consulting services, both in accounting and legal and business. And so not only did they receive some money, they received the ability to access some professional help to give them some guidance and perhaps answer some questions that they didn't know the answer to, or just wanted to make sure they were doing it right. So that's great. We appreciated that, and there was young and old alike, and the music was very good as well. So fun was had by all. So any other comments or questions?
I would like to thank all of the organizers for the Garland County Prayer Breakfast, and thank you, Mr. Carnahan, for gathering the troops. I know several of the directors were there. It was a lovely event. In fact, it's the best one that I can remember. I thought it was really good this year. Not that it's not always good, but it was exceptionally good this year and much needed.
Yeah, Director Trustee was there. I was there. A number of us were there.
I was at the Capitol, sorry.
Very good. Any other items to come before the board? We wish Ms. Director Elaine Jones recovery and good health. And so Director Weatherford, I'm not sure you've been ever designated, but we always kind of look to you to close us out in the
Make a
absence
motion,
of...
we adjourn.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn, seconded by
Second.
Director Garcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.